Hi, welcome back to the vlogs.
Okay, 9.6, we're going to talk about areas of all the shapes that we've discussed. Now, here's the deal. In 9.6, you just have to memorize formulas of how to find areas of each shape. So I would suggest like color coding a sheet at home or something and just like, writing all the formulas down and getting used to them. Area of a rhombus is easy, okay? The area of a rhombus is the base times the height, okay? The problem with a rhombus is often our rhombuses are shaped like diagonally, yes? Okay, yeah. So we have to find the height by cutting something like a triangle into it, okay? So if I'm trying to find the height, I need to find an altitude for it, yes? So the area equals the base times the height when it comes to a rhombus. Base times height, okay? And on this diagram, they give us all the information we need. They say that this rhombus here has side lengths of 122, okay? And it has a height of 70. How would I set that up to solve it?
So 132 times 70?
What did you say? 122 times 70. Okay, 122 times 70. What's 122 times 70? 8,000 what? 540 and units squared. If it doesn't give you a unit measure, you better put units squared with it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? That's it for finding the area of a rhombus. Base times height. Base times height. Okay?
That's so easy.
It is easy. You just have to remember what formula goes with which thing. Okay? How do I find the area of this rhombus? 9 times 10. What's 9 times 10? You get 90 units squared. 94.
Why do you have to put squares on the
What?
Because it's the area of
Because you're finding the area of something.
Okay.
Area is always squared. Okay? So that's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Okay? What happens if it's on a coordinate plane? The area of a parallelogram in a coordinate plane. This should give us an easier amount, or this should allow us to figure things out easier because we can count units or do things like that. Does that make sense? Okay. So if I want to find the area of this figure, what type of figure is it?
Rhombus.
So rhombus is base times height. So the area that I need to find is base times height. So I need a base and I need a height.
Base would be...
Okay. I have a height right now, don't I?
Yeah.
What is my height?
3.
3. Because this is perfectly in line, so it's 3 units, okay?
Yeah.
Now, my height, okay, do you see how they drew that red line in there?
Yeah.
Okay? My height can be found one of 2 ways.
Couldn't you just count it?
What?
Couldn't you just count it?
You can just count it, but I'm also going to teach you how to do it if there's not an actual coordinate plane and they just give you points.
This seems
Okay.
Okay? No. Okay? Your height is on what axes?
The
The
Y.
Y. Your base is on what axis? X. So you're going to take the absolute value of the difference between your x coordinates for the base and the absolute value of the difference between your y coordinates for your height. So if I were trying to figure this one out here, right, I would have 0 minus 3, the absolute value of that, which gives me 3. That's how you find out the height. Here I have 4, right? And over here I have -2. So I have 4 minus -2, the absolute value of that. So you get 6, right? So my base should be 6 units. Does that make sense? So if they don't give it to you where you can count it, that's how you find it. If they only give you 2 coordinates, you use the y's, the difference of them, the absolute value, and then the absolute value of the difference of the x's, okay? To find the height and the base. So then I get 3 and 6, and I multiply those together. And what's 3 times 6? So you have 18 units squared. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, pretty simple. Pretty simple. Here's another one. What figure is this? A rectangle, and a rectangle is a?
It's a square.
A rectangle is a
Rhombus.
hold
on.
parallelogram. I'm just asking, what else is a rectangle then?
A rectangle.
A square.
A quadrilateral.
Good job, Carly.
No, a square is a rectangle, a rectangle's not a square.
Yeah, because
Okay.
rectangles are square.
But for a rectangle, we've always been taught length times width, yes? Length times width, area equals length times width. Okay, so once again, this is on a coordinate plane. I don't have measurements, but I have points. So this point is at 8, 1, right? I'm gonna just choose 2 points. And this point's at -1, -2, yes?
Do you use the distance formula?
That's a good question, but yes, you do. So I have to use the distance formula twice, right? One for the length, one for the width, okay? So I'm gonna choose those 2 points, and then I'm gonna just choose this point here, which is 7, 3, okay? So I have to use the distance formula twice. So the distance equals the square root of x1 minus x2, right? -2 minus -8, or minus 8 squared, plus y, right? -2 and -8 is -10, -10 squared is 100, right? And then that would be 1, so you get 101, is that correct? The square root of 101. What's the square root of 101? Oh wait, I reversed that, didn't I? Look at this. This should be the other way. This is at -1, -2. It's -1, -2. So that's my fault. I can't do it. -1, -2. So this should be.
This means,
Yep.
should 7-3 be 7-4, because it looks like
Do you
it's
think
like
it's
the,
4?
I think it's 4.
It's hard to tell on here, isn't it? Oh, no, is it? Yeah, you're right.
No, I can't. It does look correct.
This is why I need straight edges, so I can line things up. Okay, so, so I get -1 minus 8 squared, and I'm gonna get plus -2 minus 1 squared. -9 squared is 81, right? And then -3 squared is 9, so I need the square root of 90, okay? 90 doesn't have a perfect square.
Nope.
You can take
30?
3 out of it,
Yeah.
and you have 3 radical 10?
No.
3 radical 10. Yeah, because 90's like this.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I had to do it in my head. I was just not. Yep.
Okay. So 3 radical 10 is this distance. And then I need 8, 1, and 7, 4, yeah? So the distance equals the square root of 8 minus 7 squared plus 1 minus 4 squared. 8 minus 7 is 1 squared, which is 1, and then -3 squared, which is 9. So I have the square root of 10 for that one. And that can't be factored at all, right? So then I have to take that and plug it into the area formula. So I'm gonna do area equals radical 10 times 3 radical 10. Ha ha. They have the same radicals, don't they?
Yeah.
So I can multiply those together. Radical 10 times 3 radical 10, what do you get? No, probably, you probably didn't put parentheses with what you needed to do, yeah. You have to do it this way, you have to say
What are we doing? Radical 10?
radical 10 in parentheses times parentheses
Is it
3
30?
radical 10 and then double parentheses. So this is actually the same as radical 900, which comes out to be 30 units squared. Okay? That's how you're gonna find the area of that. Find the area of this triangle. What do you think I have to do? What's the formula for a triangle? Yes. A equals 1/2 of, B times H, base times height, okay? Yay, okay, so now I have to figure out, this is going to be my height, yes? This is gonna be my base, yes? Okay, so this is at -2, 0. This is at 1, -2. This point is at 5, 4. What do I have to do here? Distance formula again. You're gonna have to do the distance formula twice to figure this out, okay? So distance equals the square root of 1 minus 5 squared plus -2 minus 4 squared. 1 minus 5 is -4, -4 squared is 16, right? And -2, -4 is -6, -6 squared is 36. What's 16 plus 36?
52.
52. 52 does not have a perfect square, correct? Okay, I'm gonna leave it like that though for now because it might make it easier when you plug it in for the area of something. The other distance is -2 minus 1 squared plus 0 minus -2 squared, right? So -3 squared is 9 and 2 squared is 4, so I get the square root of 13, okay? Now I plug that into my formula. Area equals 1/2 of radical 13 times radical 52. So you have to plug that into your calculator.
Ghost. It's a
Okay.
ghost.
Radical 13, well, if my calculator was on. Radical 13 times radical 52, and then we divide it by 2, because you have to take half of it, right? And you get 13 is your area. 13 units squared, okay? That's on coordinate planes. Area of a trapezoid, okay? Calculating the area of a trapezoid. To find the area of a trapezoid, we have to use this formula. The area of a trapezoid equals 1/2 times
Oh!
My bad, Kayla.
Oh,
It's a
bro.
ghost.
times base 1
AKA my fudge.
plus base 2 times your height. Or well, times a big H like that, okay?
Yo.
Times your
Yo.
height.
I need your-
Now, here's the deal. You have to have all three of those pieces of information solved. How do I plug this in and solve? What do I do?
You do what?
6 plus 8 in parentheses, so area equals 1/2 of 6 plus 8, and then what? Times 4, because 4 is my height. What's 6 plus 8? 14.
Yeah,
So take half of 14, which is what? 7. So area equals 7 times 4, which is 28 units squared. Okay, formula for a trapezoid is 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times your height. That's probably the only new one you have to memorize, is my guess, is a trapezoid, okay? And a kite, because we're gonna do a kite next. Okay, because parallelogram, square, and rectangle are all the same formula, right? Base times height. Okay? Trapezoid, you use both bases, you add them together, just like the formula for finding the mid-segment, and you divide it by 2, and then all you're doing besides the mid-segment is multiplying by the height. It's the same formula as the mid-segment, except for you multiply by the height as well, okay? Area of a trapezoid, 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times height. So if they put it on a grid, you can count things out, okay? This would be base 1, this would be base 2. Does that make sense? Okay, so base 1 is 1, 2, 3, 4 units. Base 2 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units. My height would be here. Does that make sense? Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4 units. So I plug that in, 1/2 of 7 plus 4 times 4, right? and I would get what my answer is. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, is that 11? Yes. And then I would have that times a half times 4. So half of 44, right?
22.
22. Okay. 2 more steps. Oh, I thought I put it right on here. Okay, I have another one. This one, we're working backwards though. They tell you the area, and they want you to find one of the bases. Okay, so how would I set that up? 25 equals 1/2 B1. Okay, now how do I solve from there?
Multiply side by 2?
Multiply both sides by 2, sure. Let's do that. So that this cancels, right?
Yeah.
And 25 times 2 is? So 50 equals B1 plus B6 times 4. Now what?
Now you divide by 4.
Divide by 4. What's 50 divided by 4?
120. No, 500. 15.
No, it doesn't.
Is it
12.5? Okay, so you get 12.5 equals B1 plus 6. Now what? Subtract 6 and what do you get?
6.5?
Good, 6.5 units.
Was there an
You
easier way to
worked
do
it
this?
backwards.
That's
Okay.
literally the easiest thing.
That's all you have to do. So you might have to work it backwards. What? So you might have to work it backwards. Then the last thing we're going to talk about is kites and how to find the areas of kites. This whole section's about area. So tomorrow on your quiz, the only 2 formulas you have to memorize that are new to you are kite and trapezoid for areas. Trapezoid formula is the same as finding the mid-segment, except for you also multiply it by the height. Okay? Trapezoid should be easy for you. Kites, okay? Kite equation is this. Your kite equation is 1/2 of your diagonal 1 times your diagonal 2. Okay? The area of a rhombus or a kite is the same. Rhombuses and kites are the same. You're taking diagonal 1 times diagonal 2 and you're multiplying it by 1/2. Okay? Diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. On a rhombus, my diagonals are like this, right? On my kite, my diagonals are what makes that cross section. Okay? So I'm going to draw one on the next page and then we're going to solve it together. So let's go kite.
I have it.
Guys, it's 1/2 of diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. Okay? Let's say, let's just give these lengths. Let's say that this
Thank you.
segment here is 12. Let's say that this segment here is 13. How do I solve the area of a kite? Area of a kite, 1/2 D1 times D2, right? So I do 12 times 13 times 1/2. What's 12 times 13 times 1/2?
A big number.
Kite.
I don't know, then put my calculator.
You forgot.
No.
No, he took it.
No.
78. And then you times it, yes, and then you times it by 1/2 or divide by 2. Okay, so you get what, 78 units squared, okay? So on kites and on, rhombuses, right, is 1/2 diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. On trapezoids, it's 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times your height. On parallelograms, squares, rectangles, okay? On those, it is base times height. We're good.
Can I go to the bathroom now?
Yes.
Did you say big
Parallelograms, squares, rectangles.
Like, subscribe, comment, tweet me at David Dobrik. Anything else to add, Bryson? Korea, do you have
Page
anything to add?
454.
Kaden, do you have
I'm a
anything?
dinosaur.
Korea's a dinosaur.
One,
Kaden
three,
doesn't want to be on
four,
the
all.
vlog because he's lame. And yeah, so bye guys.